like to welcome Erin Roberts, founder of the National Capital Highland Games in Ottawa, Canada. And I was lucky to first meet Erin over the summer and actually attend the Games with our Tartan tent. So that was a great part of our Tartan tour of Canada. So I heard a little about your story then, Erin, so I can't wait find out more and hear about the journey that led you to create the games.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to have you at our Highland Games. You had a beautiful booth and welcomed everybody and was definitely a hit.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so like I say, you told me a little bit of the story, but obviously it was a very busy day for you. So I think I got the condensed version. So yeah, it'll be great to speak to you again and get the full story to hear the background to the games. So
Great.
yeah,
Okay, I'll start with a little bit of a background about myself. So, growing up, my parents were very involved with the Glengarry Highland Games, which is in Maxville, Ontario. My father was a former president of the Highland Games, and my mother helped out with the children's booth and many other events. And they also helped out with the Highland dancing because I was a Highland dancer, part of the MacCulloch School of Dancing for about 15 years. So, that is one of the largest Highland Games here in Canada, and I competed there every August long weekend. So Highland dancing was definitely embedded in me since I was very, very young, about 5 or 6, and the Highland dancing really opened up the doors to be able to travel everywhere and see different Highland games all over Canada and the U.S. And the Highland dancing was also able to, besides competing, be part of various folk festivals and Highland games everywhere, including dancing with Disney over in Florida for a little while. So,
oh,
yeah, so I was able to see lots of Highland games and really fell in love with it, part of my heritage. And from then on, I thought, I think I see a little niche of something missing. And that's kind of where my little idea took off.
yeah, sounds great. So yeah, you said obviously that your parents, have been involved with Glengarry Highland Games. So basically, from the moment you were born, were you kind of surrounded by that Highland Games community then?
You got it. You got it. I often make jokes. Sometimes when I go for a long run, to work out, I listen to bagpipes. That's how embedded it is in me. Most
Okay.
people listen to like a upbeat song. I
Yeah,
listen to bagpipes because in
yeah,
my head I can recite the dancing, and to me, it's in my blood. I love the sound, and so yes, from a very young age, definitely tartan all around. We had haggis at dinner. You should have asked if I was having haggis at today's
oh,
Thanksgiving
yeah.
dinner, but but yes,
Great.
so very much a big part. And so yeah, I kind of went from there. Highland dancing was really my true first love. But I have to tell you, I used to look over my shoulder at those cabers flying through the air and thought, what does it take to throw a caber in the air? And I think that's what helped me progress on to the next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, how was it your parents first got involved in Highland Games then? Had they had a lot of Scottish heritage or just something
Yes,
that
Scottish
grew up
heritage.
with?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Scottish heritage background, and as well, they both grew up in Maxville. And so,
That,
when a small community like that hosts a major event, everybody takes part and gets involved. And so,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I imagine the population of Maxville kind of quadruples, if not a lot more than
yes,
yeah.
exactly. When everybody comes to the small town, looks around and says, "Where's the closest Holiday Inn or hotel?" and they say, "Here's the campground." That lets you know that it's very a small town. But they
Yeah,
host an amazing event, and they've been doing so for a very, very long time. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So they were first created in 1948. So yeah, it's just grown and grown from there. So yeah,
Yes.
hopefully the
Yeah.
same for the National Capital Games.
That I hope so. I hope so. There's always room for more Highland Games. Although I say that, but there's only a handful of weekends in the summer, so it's
Oh, of
you have
course.
to kind of squeeze in to get your landmark weekend and go
Yeah,
forward with that. So
yeah,
I was happy to be able to find a time in August to be able to host mine.
absolutely. Yeah, and as you said, so you started out as a Highland dancer then. So when you were little, what was it about Highland dancing that attracted you to the sport?
That's a great question. So I would have to say, well, the excitement of being on that big stage with the everybody watching and the music, and as a little kid, the competition part was great. The awards, 1988 North American champion right here, my pride to
Oh,
fame.
cool.
11 years old was a good year. But the best part about Highland dancing was the friends that I met there that I'm still friends with many, many years later, and the traveling we got to do. We got to go to like folk festivals in the US and show up, and oh, it was just such an exciting adventure. A lot of my friends were, playing other sports, and Highland dancing was a bit of a unique part. They never did offer that in high school as a sport you could do, but the friends I met there was really the biggest part of it, and continue to be friends now.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think anyone else that I've spoken to who has also been a dancer has said the exact same thing. So
You got it. You got
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, and I think, like you say, you're still not offering it as a sport. I think a lot of people don't realise just how much athleticism is required for it. It's not
Yes.
simple. So,
Yes, that's right. I saw something cute the other day on social media that talked about, the amount of effort that's involved in Highland dancing is like if you were to run a race, but at the end of a race, that athlete gets to bend over and huff and puff. But as a Highland dancer, when you're done that Highland fling, you still need to stand there with your head held high without huffing and puffing until you get off the stage.
yeah,
So
and then sort
it
of
is.
collapse once you get off stage.
Exactly. Make sure the judge can't see you, and then yes, on to the next dance. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's fun.
absolutely. Yeah, and so now you compete in heavy events. So what led you away from Highland Dance and into the heavy events? I know you said you'd always kept that eye on the caber toss, but
I did. I did. I mean, it's such an exciting thing to look over and see like a telephone pole flying through the air. And so as I got older, I thought that looks kind of neat. So I moved to Seattle, Washington for a few years. And while I was there, I took up CrossFit. And at the gym I was at, they hosted CrossFit as well as some strongman competitions. And as I learned more about both of those sports, I realized, this is a lot of the unique, brute strength that you need to use for the Highland Athletics. And so there was a Highland Games that came to our local area, and I went to watch, and I just fell in love with it all over again. And now this time I paid more attention to the actual athletic part. And I found some of the movements to be similar. And I thought, hey, I went over to talk to someone and said, can I try this out? They said, we would love to have you. Here's the next Highland Games every weekend all summer. Here's someone who can help you train. They were so inviting and so happy to have someone new come to the sport that it really made an impact on me about how inclusive it was. And that's how it started.
yeah, well, and like you say, I think so many of the events that make up the kind of competition are so unique that yeah,
Yeah.
without someone, you're like, how would you know how to even just do that? So yeah,
Right? It's so impressive to see. I actually tell some people it's a little bit like golf. When you see someone playing golf, you think, what a smooth transition that is, right? You're hitting a ball. How hard can it be? And then you get out to golf and you're like, wow, this is really technical. And you
yeah,
can always hit that ball a few feet. But if you want to hit that ball as far as you can, you need to have the technique. And that's what I quickly learned. I can throw a caber right in front of me, but I can
yeah.
throw it further and make it flip if I have the right skills. So it was really working on that and finding friends and coaches that could help me with that craft. Yeah.
And once you kind of get into that network, are there actually a lot of coaches out there then, or are they few and far between?
Well, I call them coaches, but they're really just a whole bunch of kind people that have the same
Yeah,
love and passionate for the sport.
yeah,
And we would meet every Sunday at one of the fields behind a high school, and everybody brings a few implements with them and says, okay, let's practice this. We throw a few things, we have a few good laughs. And it just became a really great group of people that helped each other, lift each other up, and you cheer each other on. It's just such a fun, enthusiastic part. And when I came back to live in Canada, I said, this is what I want to bring back. I really want to take this back and share it with everybody else. I'll never place first. I might not place last. I'm pretty much near the bottom, but man, I have a good time doing it. And so
yeah.
to me, that's just super important to
Oh,
breathe new life
absolutely.
into the sport and to keep the
Yeah,
sport going.
yeah. And so between different Highland Games, then is it always the same heavy events that take place at every games, or is each game
Uh,
slightly unique?
They vary a little bit. You need to have,
Yeah.
I think it's 7 to make it official, and there's 8. So it
Okay.
depends sometimes on the space you have in the field. So sometimes they might not throw the light hammer because it takes a lot more field. So they might just throw the heavy hammer, which should be a shorter distance. And then sometimes they throw in the fun keg toss or maybe
Yeah.
a challenge caber or something like that, just to add a little bit of excitement and to draw the crowd in because it is a sport that we really want to involve the crowd and get that ooh ah factor when somebody throws an amazing throw. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you just mentioned the keg toss. So yeah. So
What do you know about that, Emily?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, the trophy is next door. I should have brought it through with me. So yeah, during the games, midway through the day, I think, I heard the announcement that you're having this open competition. I was like, okay, I've never heard them announce that before. That's
Yeah.
new. Right, well, if the booth is quiet, I'm sure I could nip over. Had made friends with the ice cream vendor next door, so
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
kindly said he would keep an eye on everything for me. And I was like, okay, well, let's give this a go. So came over, spoke to the athletic director, and he's like, "Yep, okay, we're going to do it in about an hour. Come back." I was like, "Right, okay." So there we go. Meantime, had messaged my colleagues back here in Scotland, said, "I think I'm going to try this," and they were like, "Yeah, do it, do it." So of course, yeah, you made the announcement, and then it's like, right, compete against athletes. And I was like, okay, not sure about this, but I've said I'm doing it now, so okay then.
Right.
But like you say, I think yes, I was able to throw a keg, but having no knowledge of any technique for it, I was just like, right, we'll give it a go. Managed to kind of hit myself as I threw it, but it doesn't
A
matter.
gentle love tap. A gentle love tap to
Exactly.
remind
Yeah.
yourself what a great athlete you are. I have to say
Um,
that the keg toss is always a fun part of the Highland Games. It kind of brings in that ties together the strongman competition, respects the strongman athletes, but it has the same technique as some of the other throws that we do. But it's a real crowd pleaser, and it's
yeah.
just fun to throw this weird object in the air and see how far it goes. And we're now looking at the championship holder of the female record at the National Capital Highland Games. So congratulations to you.
Yes, thank you. Of course, we should probably admit that other than yourself as the athlete that took part, I was the only non-athlete, so sort of by default. But you know what? I'm
I think
taking
we can. No,
it.
I think we should edit that right out and just land with the champion for 2022
Yeah,
right here in front of us.
exactly.
So
Yeah. Well, now I just have to come back and defend that championship. So
every year, I would love to have you.
absolutely.
But this
Yeah.
is really what it is about for the National Capital Highland Games started out. When I came back to Canada, I found a hard time to find competitions that let in the newbies, the new people who had an interest but felt intimidated. We have some really great established Highland Games in Canada, the Glengarry Highland Games, as well as the Victoria Highland Games in British Columbia, that have the elite athletes throw. And it's an amazing sight to see, especially the female athletes who can throw big and far and just amazing numbers. But what I wanted to do was have a Highland Games that the newbie can come on after a safety course, of course, and really test it out and feel that
Mhm.
adrenaline rush of what it's like yourself, to throw a heavy object in the air and to think, you know what, I can do this, and to come back the next year and to compete is really, to me, the success of the National Capital Highland Games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was really evident in that it is a new games and you're finding your way as being a Highland Games, but that is kind of the core value, I would say, of the games, or is what I took to be the core value, then yeah, it gave it a unique kind of point of view, and yeah, you could see everyone having fun. And I think was it on the Friday there was that safety kind of course, and I could see people
Yes,
practicing, and again just to see people coming together to help each other out because
you got it.
well, and like
Yeah,
you say,
that's
groups at some of the other games are so large that you would kind of feel intimidated to just go out there. So
exactly. Yeah, that night before that safety course is really beautiful to watch the transfer of knowledge. You have some of the skilled athletes, the veterans who have been there a long time, really passing on those knowledge, those tips and tricks to the new athletes, saying it's okay. The first, you get three throws, and the first one, all of your jitters are going to come out, and it might not go very far. Give yourself a good laugh, and then come back, and the second one, try it a little bit better, and that third one, really get that score in, and take a picture and show your family and be proud and wear that kilt proud. And it really is about that part of it. And that really is the core values, including, the Highland Games has a lot of different venues. It has the Highland Dancers, the Scottish clans, the amazing vendors like yourself that come and provide all of the knowledge and support and tools that you need to have to be successful at the Highland Games. And I just think that everyone coming together, bringing in the new athletes, like, long live the culture, right? We really do need the next generation to come in and still think that we're cool.
yeah,
So, to
absolutely.
keep going. Otherwise, they'll continue on and move on to something else. So, I think it'll always be in style to throw a telephone pole in the air. At least it makes for a good social media picture. So we have
Absolutely.
that going for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's been some of our, best trending posts on TikTok is to do with the caper. So,
Right? There are other great
and
parts of the heavy athletics, but the caver is
but
really the crowd pleaser. Yes,
oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't realize it's not the distance, is it? It's actually, the angle that it's thrown at.
you
Whereas
got
most
it.
people, I think they just think, oh yeah, you just throw it as far as possible. And it's like, well,
Like
not
a
quite.
football, like a
Yeah,
football, right across and straight. No, that's not it
yeah,
at all. And so, yeah, there's some really great ones. The other one I think is a good crowd pleaser is the sheaf toss. It
yeah,
just kind of looks like you're baling some hay. You got that fork in that hay bag, and you're gonna you're gonna get that off the ground over your shoulder, over the bar, and it just is a really, it's a part of functional fitness. This is something that you can still do on your farm at home, or you can come to the Highland Games and compete in that same sport. So
yeah.
the way it translates into real life is still fun, a great connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think with that one, you can really see how that evolved to become an event, whereas some of the others, you're like, who first came up with the idea of throwing this? So,
I know. I know. I often tell people it really is a sport of sticks and stones because you have the caber going through the air, and then you have two of the competitions that is actually the Braemar stone and the open stone, where you really are throwing stones, kind of in a shot put fashion to get the distance. So yes, the sport of sticks and stones.
I think that sums it up. Yeah. Nice and simple.
Yep, yep. Simple is the fun part of the athletes and the day itself. But like you mentioned, one thing that is not simple, I would say, is all the logistics of bringing that day together. Sometimes I say it's kind of like planning a wedding every year. There are ebbs and flows of, okay, I'm going to plan and plan and plan, and then I'll just wait a little bit and plan and plan. Um, but when it all comes together, it's pretty exciting. But the logistics behind it,
Yeah,
um,
I can only imagine.
that right there takes a little bit of work. And I have to say that my big idea of saying, hey, I'm going to start my own Highland Games and really help the newbies out. I had this vision that I was going to walk out onto this green, beautiful field and put my flag down and say, this is where the Highland Games will be. And then I started looking into the cost of security and tents and porta potties. These are very expensive items. And so I had to revisit my amazing plan of just declaring this land the land of the National Capital Highland Games, and that's where I looked around for a venue. To really help me out. And I went to the Capital Fair, a very well established 10-day fair here in Ottawa, and said, would you have any interest of bringing me on as a 1-day show? Per se, like a contractor. So they had not heard of the Highland Games before. So I brought them out to the Glengarry Highland Games in Maxville and said, this is what it could be someday. It might take 75 years, but this is what it could be. And they said, wow, this is pretty amazing. And I said, give me a chance. Let me see if I can do this. And this was in 2019. And they did that. I joined the board of directors of the Capital Fair, and they were 100% supportive. They helped me out with grants to be able to get the show off the road. They provided the security, the tents, the signage, the media, everything that takes around, and those expensive porta potties, all the things that
Yeah,
have to come together to make the event successful. So, because of that, it really was able to take a small little idea and make it grow, and now a well-established part of the Capital Fair. So, very proud of that partnership.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think, as you're establishing yourself, you always know that there's going to be passing trade and people are just like, oh, what's going on over there? So it makes
Right?
total sense, yeah, to kind of to start out and build it from that point. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and I think across Canada, then, we forget how much kind of the Scottish culture really has made an impact. So I would say even more so than in the States, a lot of people you speak to, they already have some knowledge. They might not know everything, but that kind of base level of knowledge of Scottish culture is so much higher. So for us to
right,
come over and yeah, to see how yeah, everything that we just take for granted is actually celebrated and people do
right.
think it's cool and want to be part of it. Like
Everybody wants to be Scottish, let's face it, right?
yeah, absolutely. And again, like you grow up here, you're just like, yeah, every country has castles and tartans and these events, but apparently not. So yeah,
I love it when the new athletes come to me and say, okay, I'm in. What do I need? And I say, a kilt. And they go, okay, okay, where am I going to get that? Okay, well, obviously now I know the best place in town to get this, but but at the same time, I often say go back and ask someone in your family. You'd be surprised to know how many generations have worn a kilt in your family. And someone will come to me and say, "Thank you so much for saying that because I asked my grandmother and she had a kilt in her closet and she brought it out and dusted it off. And this is I found out that I do have some heritage and that this was a big deal in my family." And to me, that's such a success to know how it continues on and people get to learn about their heritage while they're learning about a new sport.
Absolutely. And I think for us, like you say, at the games, it is kind of passing on that knowledge. And yes, okay, as much as we are there to sell, a huge part of what we do is people just saying, oh, this is my last name. Would there be any link to a clan? Or like, I know what the clan name is, but I don't know what the tartan looks like. And yeah, just
Right?
well, we're delighted to allow people into that world of like, yeah, like you and there might be multiple variations, so you can choose which one you like best, or go and do the genealogy to find out. So
Yes. Oh, that's so amazing. And
yeah.
that's really the importance of having the clans that were there at
Mm,
the
yeah.
Highland Games is if people run over and say, "Here's my last name." It's like a fortune teller. Tell me everything there is about my
Yeah.
last name. And it's fun to see them come back and say, "Okay, how do I match this up with my tartan? How does that relate to me? What do these colors in the tartan represent?" And I think owning that bit of it is just it makes it all come together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I know that you were competing in your own kilt. So which clan tartan do you go for? Do you have multiple ones that you compete in? So talk me through
Well,
it.
I have to tell you, I have multiple ones I compete in.
Yeah.
As a Highland dancer, they tend to have the tartans that are just two colors when you're in the competitions. So
Mhm.
when growing up, I had a blue and a white one for a long time, and then a green and a white one to make it really pop on stage. They really do that. And then as I entered into the heavy athletics, it was kind of a joke, but I may have gone for that loud McLeod, that bright bumblebee yellow, because I thought I'm not very good at this sport. I have zero skills, but I kind of want to make some friends and stand out. So I went for the loud McLeod with
Yeah.
no connection to my heritage, and wore that for a while. And then I just recently got one that has more blue tones in it to match a crest that I wanted to put on it. But I'll be honest, I have no. I don't discriminate against any tartan. I wear them all. I love to collect them all.
Yeah.
And I really love to have a collection, whether I'm going to a formal event or whether
Mm.
I'm going to compete and it might get a little dirty.
Yeah.
Yes, one of your best
Exactly.
customers to be able to have one in every color.
Well,
Wouldn't
there
that be
you
success?
go. Well, that's the thing, some people are worried that if they don't have Scottish heritage, that they can't wear the tartan. We're like, yeah, of course. Like, even if you don't want to wear the tartan of another clan, there are
Yes,
Canadian Scottish tartans,
yes,
basically for every province. Again, there's
yeah,
also American tartans. There's ones just generally celebrating Scotland. There's Irish, there's Welsh. So, once people realise that, you're like, no, like, we're not gonna get annoyed by you wearing this. Like, we just want everyone to embrace it. So yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah, we welcomed the Cameron Highlanders that took part this year as part of the our military showcase, and they came with their own kilts that represent. And I found a lot of people in the crowd would say, how does that relate to who they are and what they're representing, and is that their last name? And it is a conversation starter to say, what does that mean to you? What are you wearing, and how do you value those colors that are in there, or what are you representing? And what group are you part of? So it is a conversation starter, really, to say, just like our outfits right now. I can tell you,
yeah,
it's just fun to wear plaid, right?
right, yeah. Well, exactly. A lot of people think this jacket is my clan tartan, but this is actually the New York City tartan for an event
Ooh.
that I went to in New York City. So I do have
Ah,
outfits in Clan Wallace, that's my own clan. But yeah, we like to mix it up as well. We don't have to stick to our
no.
own clan. So
No,
yeah.
I'm actually I'm off to New York City next weekend to be a panelist to speak about how to bring youth into and lead change in having new Highland Games. And being a panelist, I thought same thing. I need one of these like really great blazers with some plaids. So I've been on the hunt for that. So yeah, I know where to go next time. I'll be ordering my blazer there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We can help you out with that. So, yeah. Well, and it's been great to hear kind of all of those small events that led to this big idea that you had. So obviously the first games were 2019, and then
Mhm.
obviously the world changed a little bit. So yeah, everything got put on hold. So I imagine that must have been a real shame having kind of got started to then, yeah.
Yeah, it was for sure. I like to see the positive in things. So I thought to myself, okay, I've gotten a little bit of extra time to plan. But at the same time, it was still hard to plan anything because people were still reserved about, going about their ways. So, but it gave me some extra time to brainstorm, and we did bring forward some new ideas in 2022. But of course, I have a laundry list of things I would love to see in future Highland Games. Some of them being, I'd love to have a section for the heavy athletics that are with the adaptive athlete. And I would love to have really bring in the youth. I have three teenage daughters, and they would all love it to try this out. And so, really bringing in um, to the sport, bringing in youth adaptive athletes, and really being as inclusive as we can in all aspects of the Highland Games, while still educating and making a safe place to try the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. Because again, I don't feel like I've seen that at any other games. So yeah,
Right.
I
I have to
obviously
say,
maybe have, and I've just missed it. But yeah, no, like you say, yeah, that sounds
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah,
in 2019, my goal was really to bring in more female athletes because it is hard in Canada to break into that. Some Highland Games in Canada, sadly, are still not offering the heavy athletics to women. They are still only having the men compete, and it's just mind-boggling that that's the way that they're doing their business. So I wanted to make sure that that is not our values, so much so that we offered prize money for the women as we do for the men who competed, and we paid 3 times as much to the women in 2019 for prize money, to make an impact and to be able to say, this is important to me, this is important to the sport. And we had a few people come to us and say, 3 times the amount. And I said, yes, just think about that for a second. You tell everybody you know, because that really is the best marketing, is to let everyone know how much we appreciate building the sport and making it
yeah,
as inclusive as we can. So yep. Say it loud, say it proud. I want more women in this sport, and that
yeah,
really is part of why I do all this volunteer work, is to make sure that we can keep it alive and going for generations to come. So happy to
yeah,
do that.
absolutely. And so this may be a question you don't have an answer to, but do you have a date for 2023 yet?
Well, that is a great question, and I probably should have looked ahead. I think it'll be around about the same time, so August 19th or 20th.
Yeah.
So with the Capital Fair, they offer the flexibility where the fair is 10 days long. I can usually pick from either weekend of the
Oh,
10 days, and there is a Highland Games world competition that'll be happening. And that's the second weekend of those 10 days. So I think I'll be safe and pick the beginning. So around the 19th, 20th, I'll come back with a sure date.
yeah.
But let's do it again, and let's keep going. And would love to have you. You are
And,
so fabulous and fun. Your social media is so great. And like I
yeah.
said, you have to come back and defend your title for the
Well,
keg
that
throwing champion.
no pressure now.
No
My
pressure.
colleagues are going to want to come with me, probably steal my thunder, but it's okay. If it gets
Everybody's welcome.
away, then yeah, absolutely. I'm happy for it to go to someone else. So yeah, perfect.
Oh,
And
that's
so if
great.
people want to follow you and see all the updates in the lead up to the games, where can they come and find you?
Well, the Capital Fair has a brand new website that's up and coming. And so capitalfair.ca will bring you everything you need to know about the 10 days that's happening at the Capital Fair. How you can come and enjoy all of those events. And we do hope to have the National Capital Highland Games expand onto a second day. So we've had a lot of interest to be able to put more of a training camp on the Friday, and then the competition on the Saturday. So if someone is looking to come, make sure you check the website to be able to see how many days are involved in that. And if you'd like to see some silly pictures of me throwing capers in the air on Instagram, it's Kilted Athlete. You can look that up and see some of my bloopers, because, like I said, not the best, not the worst, just somewhere in between, trying to have a good time.
I think that's the best way to go about it. So yeah. I know some of the guys when they heard I was actually from Scotland, they're like, "That's not fair," and I was like, "I might be from Scotland. It does not mean I know what I'm doing." So
Right? Right? I love the music, and I really want to be good at this sport, but let me tell you, it's the laughter, it's the camaraderie, it's everybody cheering for everybody. The crowd goes wild when you throw some silly object in the air. and you look over and think they're cheering for me. Like they really are.
Yeah,
This is such a great thing. And the Highland Dance thing, most respect for that. The young kids, we had kids that were 5 years old to compete all the way to 25. I mean, that's just a polished sport to watch, and a really important part of the Highland Games.
perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that
Thank
we can
you.
inspire people to go and learn about the games and get practicing ready for next year.
Excellent. I hope so too. And I really do hope you come back on your world tour and
Yeah,
stop by Canada anytime. I'd love to have
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, yeah, we're planning an even longer trip this year. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's great. Okay,
yeah,
good. I'll promise you
absolutely.
good weather again, maybe a little bit less hot.
Yeah, I was going to say that wasn't the hottest weekend that
Oof.
I was there, but it was one of them definitely. So yeah, we don't we worship the sun here in Scotland when it comes out. We probably don't handle it that well. So yeah, lots of water was required, but
I, I'm I may have in 2019 it was overcast and a little bit rainy on the Highland Games, so I think I spent the whole 2 years of the pandemic praying for sun. So much so that
yeah,
that particular day, the sun gods really came through for me and offered me. It was like plus 40, I think, at one time. It was so hot,
yeah, I know, and I mean it was hot for me just in the booth, let
right?
alone to compete all day. So
It's still
so
fun.
next year we want something in between then.
Yes, for
So
sure.
absolutely perfect. Well, enjoy your Thanksgiving dinner this evening.
Thank you.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you for taking the time out of the holiday to speak with me. So
Anytime. It's such a pleasure, Emily. It's really great to
yeah,
speak with you.
thank you so much.
Okay, take care.